Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will cover most important events which happened last week or before last week. One, first, we'll talk about the tension, the eruption of political tension between Sudan and Ethiopia on the incident of the killing of the Sudanese troops and civilians. Plus, we'll continue on our ongoing concern about the political upheaval and the political turmoil which is in Sudan since almost 7 or 8 months, 8 months, coming the 9th month. So that's why we are happy to host in this episode our friend, and he's he's an activist, he's an associate professor in many universities, but he is primarily in the arena of the political turmoil, actually, if we call it turmoil. This is our friend, Dr. or Associate Professor Samani Hanoun. Welcome, dear Samani Hanoun, in this episode.
Well, thanks Engineer Abu Haras, and thanks to Sudan TV, and especially to the Dialogue Horizon programs. And in the beginning, I have to extend a special condolence to all victims in Sudan, and especially the victims of June 30 who were passed away during the demonstrations, and a special condolence to our soldiers in the border, in the east border of Sudan, who was killed during the last week. To our condolence to all Sudanese people and to all victims during this era of violence. And I hope that the peace will cover the different part of country, and the political stability will be soon in Sudan. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Samani Hanoun. Okay, let's start by the first incident which occurred, which is it is still hot, and it might lead to some confrontation or military operation between Sudan and Ethiopia, although we know that everybody knows that the relation between Sudan and Ethiopia is very special and at the same time very sensitive. Bad relations or tension affects both countries. So, Dr. Samani, let us talk about the incident of the 22nd of June, almost 7 or 8 days ago, when the Ethiopians, let us say the Ethiopians, whether the troops or the militias, anyhow the Ethiopians who were inside the border of Sudan, in the Fashaga area, they abducted 6 soldiers and 1 civilian, and they shot them, they executed them, and displayed their pictures on the media, which this was a very bad incident, which resulted in the sudden visit by General Burhan to the east borders, to the soldiers, and to see what is happening. So that the Ethiopians also, they are claiming the different story. So can you tell us about this incident and its effect on the relation between Sudan and Ethiopia in the near and far future?
Definitely, that is very tragic news received from the borders, Sudani-Ethiopian borders, which reflect the killing of about 7 soldiers and 1 civilians by the Ethiopian troop. And that actually represents very disappointing news for all Sudanese people everywhere, and reflect to what extent these borders are in continuous clashes with the Ethiopian armies and militia. And this is actually a historical event dated back to the Mahdist state. Since that time and up to date, still these borders are unstable, and continuous clashes between the Ethiopian and Sudanese people represent a routine events in that part of the country. But the last event took a special form of tragedy because the Ethiopian armies mutilated the bodies of the 7 soldiers. That's increased the anger among the leaders. Peoples of Sudanese people got very disappointed about this unhumanitarian action by the armed forces who mutilated the bodies of the killed soldiers. That actually very disappointing event that led the leader or President Al-Burhan to visit the borders and also to lead the confrontation in that part of country and also to address the hot issues over there. So the clashes between Ethiopia and Sudan, the historical phenomena dated back to the history of the Mahdist states when very active war took place in that part of country, and even the president at that time, Yohanna, was killed by the Mahdist troop. And it was very active war took place ever in this part of countries. So these borders, which extended to more than 884 kilometers, the long borders between Sudan and Egypt. I think one of the direct reasons behind increasing violence in that part of country, the increasing demand for food. Now the world facing food gap, and especially Ethiopia lost part of the land, that cultivable land, in order to produce food for their peoples. So they face some pressures in order to get lands, in order to be cultivated, to provide food security for the people. So the Ethiopians are under pressures of lack of foods, and they are looking for the land, especially in the Sudanese borders.
This is one of it. We will come to this. This is
yeah,
very
I think this is
a
why
very important
they put,
issue.
more
The point you raised is very important, and we are coming to it. This is very important. We'll talk about the dispute between Ethiopia and the borders. We'll come to this later in this episode.
Yeah.
So, but I want to have your opinion. You ask you about the reaction of the Sudanese authorities, reaction which message
Security
Council
yeah.
and African Union,
Yeah.
and they summoned the Ethiopian
The ambassador.
the ambassador
Yeah.
in Ethiopia, and did not go more than this. What about the reaction? Do you feel that the reaction is good so far, good, until the facts are
No,
clear?
it's still not yet. It's still they have to take further actions because this is a routine tragic events took place in the border. So the Sudanese people reactions against this tragic event is not enough. They have to go further, and especially they have to pursue the procedure with the Security Council, with the African unions, and also most important, they have to go back to the bilateral agreement between Sudan and Ethiopia during 1902 and 1907. These agreements are very important and represent background to settle the dispute in borders between Sudan and Ethiopia. So the Sudanese government should take further actions in order to settle this historical dispute in borders for more than a century back. I think the agreement 1902 and 1907 enough to settle the disputes, and this is international agreement and sponsored by the UN and by the other international organizations like the African Union. So they have only to take action and to fix the signals of the borders.
So
that is all.
if you are suggesting that the Sudanese government, what it did so far, is not enough.
Yeah.
But the problem is that maybe the Sudanese government is waiting for the results of the investigation. The Ethiopians, they promised in their statement by the Foreign Affairs that they will form a committee for investigation. After the investigation, maybe if they are not by orders of the government of Ethiopia or not by the troops, the regular army, and if by the militia, the Ethiopians should have apologized for this, and they said so maybe the government is waiting for the results.
But I have to make different tracks. We cannot wait for the results. So the government should continue in order to make total solution for this problem. Because during the history, the Sudan already make demarcation for the borders between Ethiopia and Sudan. And also in 1907, they went further to just fix the signals of the borders. So they stops at the end of the process, so that now the government should continue. That is something else. The investigations and the inquiry committee held by the Ethiopian army can take one track. The other tracks, the government should continue on these legal procedures in order to make total solution for these continuous clashes in the borders by just referring to the international law and to the Security Council, and they have to make final decision about the borders in Sudan, because this is inherited problem since
But
state.
Dr. Samani,
Yeah.
the problem of what happened last week, the killing, it was not direct result of the border dispute. Border dispute now is stagnant. The issue, the killing,
Yeah.
it was not directly related to the conflict about the borders. Borders, when the troops, the Cuban troops, they
It is a
cross the border.
manifestations of that congestions,
so that-
because movement of Tigray also can play a role in that area. This is war area. The different parties are conflicting in this part. The Ethiopian government, Tigray movement, the Sudanese armed forces, all of them, and some tribes also involved in these clashes from time to time. So this is a land of wars. In order to make the total solution, you have to look into the root causes of the congestions in that part of country. One of the causes, the borders, the demarcations of borders between the two countries, in order to make very clear decision which part belongs to to Ethiopia and which part belongs to Sudan. So that is important in order at least to control the movement of these militias, the tribes across borders. This is an inherited problem, as I mentioned.
This will take us to the issue of the 1902 agreement, which was signed by the Ethiopians, the king of Ethiopia, with the sovereignty of the Ethiopians.
Yes.
And it was signed for Sudan on behalf of Sudan by the colonizers, the British.
The condominium.
Yes. So this 1902 agreement, it talks about the borders and also about the water, the resource, the running of the water from the Blue Nile up to the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah.
That's another important issue.
Yeah.
There are articles in this agreement, same agreement, restricting Ethiopia from making any construction which stops or reduce the flow
of water to the other members.
Without the consent of Sudan and the British government.
Yes.
Not Egypt.
The British, the condominium period.
So
I think, that is
talk about the borders.
Yeah, the borders, that also agreement, 1902, definitely make very clear statement about the locations and even the signals that to be located on the borders in order to make what belongs to the Ethiopia and what belongs to the Sudan. And also they talk about the resources and control of resources. So the water especially should be controlled by the three parties, the Empire of Ethiopia and the condominium government, which is the Egyptian and Anglo-Egyptian government during that time. So these parties, unless they come to consensus, they cannot expand the use of water resources especially. And this is, I think, what make Egyptians. Egyptians are not part of the agreement, but they are, through the condominium government, they are part of the ruling system at that time. So what is make sense that Sudan government is not part of this agreement. This agreement under the national government of Ethiopia, and at that time Sudan was under the colonial power. So this is most reliable because the Ethiopians they sign it on behalf of their national interest. So this agreement is binding to the Ethiopian. because Sudan have the right to criticize the agreement and to say we are not fully independent at that time. But the Ethiopian, they don't have right to claim, and they have to accept the agreement according to the condition prescribed in the term of contract or agreement. So one of the contracts make very clear statement about consensus about water resources, and water resources to be shared between the two parties, as the Ethiopian and condominium government in Khartoum. So they have to agree about any uses of resources of water and expansion.
Now, what about the borders? The border, not the conflict is about the border.
Yeah, the border. Now borders agreed upon the borders, and they make even the demarcations of the border during that agreement. And they, in 1907, they went further to fix the signals of the borders. So that means there is no dispute about the borders. The two countries agreed put the borders, but they have just to exercise and to put the signals
to complete
the agreement. That is all. Yeah. But what makes it complicated, the events of assassinations of President Hosni Mubarak in Addis Ababa in 1995. This is one of the direct factor behind complicating matter. During that time, Al-Inqas regime gives some sorts of pride to the Ethiopian to cultivate that part of land. So this is why the matter get it more complicated. What happened during the 1995 and upward that give Ethiopian right to cultivate that part of country, and finally they was strongly tied with the land and the tribes, and also they need food in order to produce. You know that the lands or topography of Ethiopia are not cultivables because there are so many mountains, and you cannot produce foods like Sudan. So in that lands, the Ethiopian mostly produce in more than 1 million faddans located in the borders. So use it for productions of the food, and also since 1995, after assassinations of Hosni Mubarak in Addis Ababa, they started to cultivate this land. So the tribes more ties to these lands, and they use a lot of investment in, especially in food and agricultural production. So they need now, because of increasing demand for food, again they want to go back and to invest or to cultivate this part of country. The agreement is important, I think, and it is hot time for Sudan to take actions about the signals and to fix signals along about 885 kilometers, very long borders. They need to make very clear descriptions for these borders in order to avoid any future clashes between the armed forces.
So you believe that the things must go as quickly as possible in resolving the conflict of the borders, in implementing the 1902 and 1907 agreements. And ironically enough, all presidents or emperors or rulers of Ethiopia till Abiy Ahmed, they did not explicitly talk about this agreement. I mean, nobody claimed that the Fashaga area is Ethiopian. In the previous, Smalit Zenawi, Desalegn, even Emperor Haile Selassie, even Mengistu, all rulers of Ethiopia in the past. Maybe because of the Tigray being in the neighborhood of this area, maybe the issue is not the 1902 agreement or the demarcation of the borders. Maybe the issue is the existence of this Tigray, like a bone of contention to Ethiopia.
Existence of Tigray make the Ethiopian government not so enthusiastic enough to these borders, because they think that one day this land will go to the Tigray themselves, they have to claim for the land. So according to that, they don't mention something about the borders, and they are not or 100% sure that this land should go to the Sudan or Ethiopia. One thing more, the Angasana border also, according to this agreement, it belongs to the Sudan. according to the agreement. This is something that why they kept silent and they don't
Gambela.
talk about. Yeah, the Angasan himself, this region very rich with gold, you know. So that region, accordingly, will go to the Sudan. If you make demarcation to the 884 kilometer, that will go through Angasana mountain. So they are worried about to take more land even. This is why they avoid the 1902 agreement and 1907. They don't speak about or talk about this special agreement that will give more land to the Sudan according to the agreement, which is signed by the empire. And they have no right to deny the agreement, definitely, because under national government.
Yes.
Like
So they don't have any right to revoke it or to not to abide by it. by
yeah,
the
they 100% to be
1902.
abided by the law. Yeah.
Because actually not only the borders, also it is putting some restrictions on the Ethiopians about the flow of the Blue Nile.
Yeah, about the management of water
Yeah.
resources, so many rights to the Sudan. So they don't talk about the agreement, which is signed under national government. They don't have claim or right to avoid
To
this.
say yes,
Yeah,
to say.
yeah.
But finally, about this tension, do you believe that the relation between Sudan and Ethiopia, for many reasons, it should be good, bearing in mind that we have Ethiopians in Sudan, millions, 3-4 millions in Sudan, and living in peace in Sudan, and nobody is bothering them.
For package of reason, I don't think the relation, although in media they talk about good relation and friendly, but in practice you'll find something different. For century back, if you examine the history of these relations based on clashes between Ethiopian and Sudanese, and what happened yesterday can be repeated tomorrow, especially in analysis. So for century back, we faced many clashes with the Ethiopian, and still continuous clashes. And now there are new factors. The food gap in the world and the need for land to cultivate in order to feed the people. This, I think, based on history of the relations between Ethiopia and Sudan, and based on the fundamental news today about food gap and need to make cultivation, the clashes will continue. Unfortunately, the clashes with Ethiopia will continue. However, we are talking about very friendly relations, about very close relations, about brothers relations, but the conflict of resources represent the big challenge. So if you examine back 150 years, you will find there is continuous clashes. Since Mahdist state and the Anglo-Turkey system through Anglo-Egyptian system, the clashes continue under all system with the Ethiopian. So now what happened yesterday can be repeated tomorrow according to the analysis. And also according to the fundamental news today, Ethiopia lack of land that can be cultivated in order to feed the people. A world facing food gap. And now they are looking at most of the nations and the world, around the world, they are working to find land where they can produce food for their people. So one of the, definitely based on this environment, we expect the clashes will continue. So we have to take action about the root causes of the clashes. The borders, we have to make demarcation for borders as one of the potential reasons for clashes. And then we go to the water resources, the other source of clashes. So the resources represent the source, the most important factors for clashes between Sudan and Ethiopia. My judgment is that the clashes will continue, unfortunately, because of history and the fundamental news today. Based on history and news today, we expect that clashes will continue.
So the best thing, from what you are saying, the best thing to absorb this tension, expected tension or the previous tension, is to try the three countries, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, they should try to make some project, a very good project, agricultural project, by the three countries. When they make such an integral or integrational project, the three countries will benefit. Then the tension will definitely be reduced manifold if they go for something which is useful to Ethiopia, useful to Sudan, and useful to Egypt. And Sudan, by the way, can play this role because Sudan has the leverage. It has the leverage over Ethiopia and Egypt because they have the land.
Yeah.
And they have the land and they have the agreement, protected
Yeah.
by the agreement. This is our land, the federal land. But it can be something like an international or regional integrational project for agriculture.
I think the proposal to create an integrated free zone area in this part after signing the agreement, the land owned by Sudan,
Yes.
resources should be owned by all people because resources are important to the Egypt, to the
Egypt, to
Ethiopia,
Ethiopia.
to Sudan. So after signing the agreement, this is conditional, after signing the agreement of borders and get approval and consent of Ethiopia about borders, then the second step they have to go to the resources. On this part of country, they have to give the Ethiopian the right to cultivate in order to provide food there for their people. And the Egyptian also they ensure the management of the water resources. So this trilateral agreement, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, I think can build this area or integrated area in the land of Sudan. The land of Sudan. So according to this proposal, we can make innovative solution for this inherent problem unless we think out of the box. We cannot settle the clashes in that part of country. I told you that 1 century, 2 centuries back, the clash is going on.
Yeah.
In order to quit from this very long
We have to do
marathon of
something
clash,
big.
we have to quit from the box and to think outside the box. Make some innovative solution. Innovative solutions, we have to sign the agreement of border to emphasize that this land belongs to Sudan. This is one part of the agreement. The second part of agreement, the resource obligation among the three parties, the Ethiopia, they cannot to ensure that all parties, they have to receive what they need. The Ethiopia should fund the land. They have to cultivate, to give license to the Ethiopian in order to produce the food for their people. The Egyptian, they have to make sure water will go to the Ethiopian. Unless the three countries sit together and make resources agreement on the land of Sudan, they will never solve the problem. The problem will continue on this basis.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for hundreds of years in the future.
This is very good. So that the solution is that after they pass,
Yeah.
or we pass this tension, this transient tension between Sudan and Ethiopia, people should think deep out of the box
Yeah.
on a trio investment project.
Investment, resources,
Egypt,
exploitation.
Egypt, they have the experience, they
Yeah.
have the know-how
Yes.
in the agriculture, they have, because they are producing in very limited areas, so that's why their productivity is very high. So they can make use of this. Ethiopians, they have the labor, they have good labor, Egyptian, and Sudan has the land.
Yeah.
Ethiopia, they have water and the power.
Yeah.
It will come. So this is one of the solutions for the future stability between the three countries.
Yeah,
Sudan and
definitely,
Ethiopia.
definitely.
Okay, let us move to another issue, which is now we cover this issue of the Ethiopia, and we believe that the steps taken by the government so far is okay until we listen, until we see the result of the investigation, and we see the response of the United Nations, the Security Council, and the African Union. Till that time, people should refrain or from any further escalation of the
Military
Okay,
response,
now let us go to the situation in Sudan, the turmoil in Sudan, and the rallies and actually demonstration of yesterday, and it's still continuing. So it's still the turmoil or the turbulence is still in the political arena of Sudan till this moment.
Yeah.
What do you think? Some people they think that the tripartite mechanism or the trio mechanism or whatever call it entity, the UNITAMS, the IGAD, and African Union. It seems that the coordination between, or that let us say the confidence or trust between both African Union and IGAD and the unit terms from other side, especially with the worker, it seems that there is a little bit of lack of confidence between the three. So, to what extent can this mechanism go and solve the problem? Do you think that they stand any good chance to solve the problem, the political problem of the Sudan?
Yeah, however, dialogue is the only way to solve disputes among nations. But I am not so optimistic about this trilateral mechanism to solve the problem, because one of the reasons that now they create a new track after the trilateral track of IGAD and African Union and the UNITAMS. They create a new track, Saudi American track, and this is a new tracks, and so that will send negative signals to the viewers and people who are watching the daily actions of mechanism. That means they are not agreed upon general principles. These new tracks actually weaken the performance of the trilateral mechanism, because
Which track? Which new
the
track?
new track, Saudi American tracks,
Saudi American
the
track.
Saudi ambassador who used to make a special meeting with the FFC in order to reconcile dispute between FFC and the military component. So they create a new track, as if they move from the principal track to some marginal tracks, and that will send a negative signal because they are not agreed upon the general principles of the mechanism. A new tracks is not acceptable. And one thing more, that increasing the numbers of the protests in the street. People during June, if you follow the demonstration, you can easily discover that total populations of the protest increase in the streets this time. And also the total number of victims. All these are breach news that not signal any positive news that to give any optimistic solution in the future. So for this package of the breach news we have received in the fundamental news, we think that the trilateral mechanism is not able to address the problem, or even up to now they failed because of very slow motion for our tracks to solve the problems. The security, the Sovereign Council urged this trilateral mechanism in order to accelerate the solutions. Volcker is very slow, takes more time. That will complicate the matter. And we mentioned several times, in risk management, whenever we increase the length of time, we increase the risk. So we need to take urgent actions about the settlement, and he must make an announcement and declaration to the development of the peace process in Sudan. But the way he tackled the issue is very humble and expressed it in many interviews, that Volcker should work fast in order to address these issues before to get some catastrophic ends or tragic end. Now the violence is increasing in the streets. Total number of the protests are increasing in the streets. That create more tracks, and that is negative signals. So we have to remain with only track of the trilateral track. Many weaknesses in the trilateral mechanism. So the UNITAMS should take urgent actions regarding the reconcile, regarding the decisions about to settle the dispute. Otherwise, the matter will complicate as you delay.
But people, some people, they think what America and Saudi Arabia did is the way, because they did that when they did that after the first session of the dialogue. The UNITAMS, the African Union, the trio, or the trio mechanism suspended the dialogue immediately after the first session, because they discovered that the important part of the dialogue is missing, is not coming. So it's meaningless to sit with people who are not indifferent. That's why they suspended, not they canceled the dialogue, they suspended. And this suspension the American and the Saudi Arabia, they intervened to try to convince, maybe, to convince the other part who did not attend or respect the call of the tripartite mechanism. Some people, they think that even this uh, dialogue or under the table or secret dialogue between the
FFC.
FFC and the military component in the dark area, not actually not exposed till now. Some people, they believe that it all will also not get the expected results. What do you think of this new track created by
Yeah.
America and Saudi Arabia?
Actually, this is what will make me more pessimistic about the reconciles or the national reconciles of these disputes, because even the new track failed to realize any fruitful results. So why you are creating the new track? You have to make it under one umbrella. Even the FFC is not like before, when during the December 2018, many development took place in FFC later on, because they joined the power. And Sudanese people, they know the performance of the FFC. So now he has to stick to the mechanism of the trilateral mechanism. This is the platform for all Sudanese. They have to join. Moving into partial negotiation, that will weaken the principal mechanism. That means give power to the new track headed by Saudi Arabia and the US. People, they don't trust the movement of the US especially.
But
yeah.
people, they say that the new track is not replacement to what the tripartite mechanism. They say that even Volker himself, he is in a statement, he said that almost 80% of the issues were resolved last week.
So I think
80% were resolved.
Yeah.
Maybe after resolving this, they will ask this group, the same people, to come to the second session with the other FFC group.
So this is, again, we go to the old tracks. In Sudan, we are looking for national reconcile to settle these suspending issues. The FFC, the military components, the different stakeholders in December revolution, they have to seek together under one platform in order to make national reconcile for all these disputes to serve the interests of the country and the Sudanese people. So based on that assumptions, the dialogue should be shared by all parties and to be public for every Sudani to share it, because the UN represents the umbrella under which people, they can build the confidence and at least they can exchange views about their disputes. But moving in a new track, that means you just make a dialogue between only two concerned parties and you ignore the remaining party of the trilateral mechanism. And I myself believe in open dialogue that all Sudanese should share and provide total solution for this partial solution will not solve the problem of the country. This country facing very practical challenge today to exist. In order to continue, they have to be more pragmatic, more punctual in order to solve the problems and to share all Sudanese people from the east, from the west, from north, from middle. They have to share round the table under supervision of the UN and the trilateral mechanism. Trilateral mechanism should control the dialogue and should also give a final decision about the futures of the country. When we agreed about democracy, we have to go to the election without any debate. All countries should go to the election. I don't understand how you are a political party and you believe in democracy and you are worried about practice of democracy. So once you get approval or the agreement, the UN should enforce the agreement on all Sudanese peoples in order to pave the way for the new country. Otherwise, we will go on the same road, ring road. Sometimes we will go on these tracks and then we move to make 3 tracks, like what happens in Juba and other parts. Multi-track systems, I don't think is a good idea to solve the problem. A platform is a better for
like
all.
Others, you are not optimistic. Some others, they say that the whole thing will tend to the following. the African Union will withdraw. African Union anyway, God, they will withdraw from the mechanism. United Nations might reduce its work to the level of Darfur only to solve the problem of Darfur, and this problem of Sudan will exist. Do you share these
Yeah,
people?
yeah, that means the trilateral mechanism itself was divided into
Divided,
two groups.
yes, yeah.
This is a big problem actually. That means this is the controller who should control the dialogue and retract the dialogue in the prescribed way. The mechanism itself was divided into two
Who
parts.
created, by the way, who created this mechanism? It started by United Nations Security Council by UNITAMS.
But
So
UNITAMS
who added this? UNITAMS actually started talking to the different factions.
Yeah.
Who added very recently after October 25? Who added the African Union? Although we are suspended the membership of Sudan after the coup of 25th October, the membership of Sudan was suspended.
Yeah.
Suspended means not eligible for any African activity.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is something weird.
So
What
once
happened to us?
the UNITAMS started negotiation in order to set up to launch the dialogue, they were discover there is a need to share other parties because they are players in the Sudanese discourse. These players, the African Union, needless to repeat that African unions played very constructive role during the dispute between military and civil at early time of December Revolution, and played very important role to make the agreement or the constitutional document in Sudan. So the UNITAMS itself discovered there is a need to invite other parties in order to involve in dialogue. And these parties are including the African parties. This is including the IGAD and also the African Union, because they played a role in constitutional documents during early dispute between military and the civil. And they play also role to reconcile the dispute between these two countries. So the UNITAMS in need of supporters. So they proposed to join the African Union, and all parties agreed to the African Union. And when they also proposed to join the IGAD, all parties concerned agreed upon this proposal. So this is why they joined the dialogue. And needless to repeat the sensitivity of the people, especially in Africa, not to join the African Union and IGAD. These are two important regional organizations involved in African discourse. So the UN also needs to share the African in the decision making in Sudan especially. This is why they invited, and needless to repeat their history, when they settled dispute during early age of the December revolutions between the FFC and the military component at that time. So the UNITAMS feel very in bad need to support African support. This is why they joined these two organizations, the African Union and IGAD, in order to facilitate the dialogue and finally to make national reconcile for disputes in Sudan.
Okay, that's good. Maybe our last question. Maybe we'll talk in general. Sudanese people or Sudanese politicians, Sudanese people, they are very famous of, and we are proud of that, in their popular uprisings and revolutions, which removed three strong military rules. Aboud first, the rule of Aboud, 1964, and Nimeri, 1985, and al-Bashir, 2019. They succeed. They give all sacrifices until they succeed in uprooting or taking or removing autocratic regimes. But they failed at the same time of creating or making sustainable democratic system. Very short. If we go to history, out of 66 years since independence, only about 10 or 12 years democratic rules, 52 years military rule. So what is the reason why people fail? Is it something wrong in the democratic system, the parliamentary system not suitable to Sudan, presidential system. What's the reason, Dr.
I
Samani?
think in one word, the reason Sudanese people do not believe in democracy. Even the political, they don't believe in democracy. They exercise some sort of deception. Even the political parties, they don't believe in democracy. Let us examine the history of the political party. You can easily discover how they exercise the democracy. The head of the party may stay for 4 decades without changing, and still they are talking about democracy. When the government captured by the military, they talk about democracy. When they capture the power, they remain in power forever. For example, especially the heads of the political parties, they don't accept to change. So people are undemocratic. They're non-democratic. They don't believe in democracy itself. Even they have a special explanation to the democracy. Sometimes they call it shura, which is completely different from the liberal democratic system. So unless people, they 100% believe in democracy, I don't think democracy will succeed and will be sustainable in this country, because people themselves are non-democratic and they don't believe in democracy. So how they can exercise the democracy? They don't accept the democracy. Let us examine the history of the
history,
political...
but don't you think that, don't you think maybe the system itself, the parliamentary democracy is not only parliamentary system.
Yeah, we have to think out of the box.
Because maybe the parliamentary system which is governed by the MPs, the members of the parliament, they should be at a certain level of education and awareness. And the history of our parliaments was very poor.
Very poor and failed. Very poor. And you have to go to your very interesting article. You have to go to the presidential system. So thinking about the box is a must for Sudanese people today. Because in most of the aspects of life, they were failed. In economics, in politics, and even in cultural. They failed to manage the cultural blocks in Sudan. You have Bija, Bagara, the North Nilotic, different. They were failed.
Yes,
to manage these cultural blocks. Sudanese people, they have to think about us outside the box. In politics, now we strongly encourage the presidential system in Sudan.
Yes.
Not parliament. Again, we emphasize this fact. It is very important for Sudanese people to move into presidential system, not the parliament system, which historically failed to
failed.
Failed. As you mentioned in that very interesting
you can't repeat the mistakes. Mistakes and expect different results. The same mistake.
Yes, what's said by Einstein. You cannot make
nobody is trying to think out of the box. Maybe I think this, because one of the beauty of the presidential system, it pushes or obliges the people of the country to be in 1 or 2 blocks. Blocks.
Yes.
Because presidential, you have to, maybe 2 or 3, maximum 3, they run for the post.
Yes, for post.
So people, the parties, different ideas, they will cling to two blocks.
Only 2 categories or 3 categories.
And even the presidential is not costly. The cost. No constituencies, no census. You have to make census.
Cost effective, and also we shift power to the people, to the citizen, not to the political party.
Not to the political party.
The citizen will be more powerful because they vote the most important person, the president. So for package of reason, and one thing you mentioned, that presidential system create only 2 or 3 categories in the society, not 100 political party party system.
Which cannot be. That's very interesting. I think people should entertain the idea of going to the presidential system and to weigh the benefit, pros and cons of the benefit of this system, of that system, and the reason for the recurrence of the military coups. Thank you, dear viewer, for being with us in the last hour or so, and thank to Dr. Samani Hanoun in his views. I hope to see you next week in a different issue in Dialogue Horizon. Bye.